Hi, this is Dave Stelzl, and I'm in Cancun, Mexico. I'm preparing for my session tomorrow morning, which is going to be on creating business. And so I wanted to share with you a few things as I'm preparing here. And since they're not going to record the entire event, I thought I'd put some summary items here online. The first part of the talk starts out by recognizing that all resellers and all manufacturers, when they go out and they sell security, understand that there's a risk involved in data. But they tend to focus on the value of data. And so we start asking questions about value of data and talking with clients about how much they stand to lose. The problem is most clients understand how much they stand to lose. That's not a new issue, and it's something they've repeated over and over to those that come in and sell to them. So what is it that's going to grab the attention of someone who is in a position to buy? I think if we look at something that's attention grabbing, first of all, we've got to have someone who has liability regarding data and data loss. It can't just be a technical person who doesn't have any liability or any stake in the game. It's got to be somebody who cares, somebody who stands to lose quite a bit if that data is lost. But I think what the missing element is in the sales process is a measurement of likelihood. I was speaking with a client that I work with just recently. He had taken a workshop with me online, my virtual workshop in January, and he said that he was out working with the CISO, and as they began to talk about the data, sure enough, that was the issue. What is the likelihood that data will be lost? How likely is it? And most people can't tell you that. There has to be some kind of analysis to build that justification, and that's what I think is a salesperson's job. If we look at the typical sales process, what we see are salespeople going out with product slicks, presenting products in an effort to get that person to change products. This is not a good way to sell. People buy when they perceive there to be risk, and risk is a measure of impact versus likelihood. Impact is something that the customer tells us. Likelihood is something that we measure. We use an assessment process to make this measurement. We use some kind of discovery process. Let's not get hung up on what assessment means. We're simply talking about discovery here. But discovery can take on a whole different flavor when we start to look at risk, when we start to look at likelihood, when we start to look at how data is created, how it's used, who uses it, where it's used, and what those threats might be and how those threats might change given the current environment of the business. One of the statistics that was mentioned this week at the conference is that 90% of end nodes are compromised. If that's true, then that means that every client that you're calling on has compromised end nodes. And so the question is, how safe is their data? What is the likelihood? Well, all of a sudden, the likelihood is 100%. Can we find that? Can we demonstrate to a client that they have an end node problem? Now, do you have to give away the assessment? No, you don't have to. You can charge for the assessment. If they're willing to pay for it, have them pay for it. But if they're not, sometimes you want to do it in a complimentary fashion. The question is, how can you get the assessment done? The assessment is what delivers impact versus likelihood, and this is what creates justification for the deal. Now, what do you do in the assessment? That's always the question that comes up. Well, first of all, questions are your number one tool. So what kinds of questions do you want to ask? You don't want to be asking questions like, how do you encrypt your data? Or, how do you encrypt your hard drive? Or, what antivirus product are you using? These are all IT questions, and these are what I call demotion questions. Demotion questions will send you down quickly. Executive questions are your number one tool. Executive questions are the things that allow you to discover what critical data exists. My famous question, what are you trying to protect, is done at the executive level, because only the executive can answer the question, what really needs to be protected right now in this company. Questions that deal with impact tend to be executive questions. What's the impact of this data being lost, or this data being seen, or the competition getting a hold of this data? Companies go out of business when customer data is exposed and it costs them too much to recover. Now, once the assessment is complete in terms of executive questions, now I can go down to the IT people. See, I use the IT people to validate what I've already assessed in the executive level. So I've asked these questions, I've understood what the impacts look like, I've understood what hunches I might have as to how data might be compromised. I can see where it's being created, and I can see where some of the holes might be in terms of where it's being used, the mobility or the consumerization of products used in that organization, or whatever it is that is in the process that they use, from the creation through the usage and storage and archival and disposal of data. And once I understand that, Now I can go down to the technical organization with a focus in mind. And what am I looking for? I'm looking for the things that I think are vulnerable so I can go right to them to create the urgency I'm looking for. See, there's not a lot of value in assessing millions of things and coming back with millions of issues. There is value in assessing what is highly likely and then going and proving it among the technical organization. And here's how it's being compromised, or here's the likelihood that it will be compromised. And based on our 90% in-node compromise statistic we just threw out a minute ago, if I can somehow communicate to them that this is actually happening in their organization, that somebody is actually in their data right now, this creates immediate justification. This is what urgency is all about. Now finally, I have to deliver this thing. And the delivery of that report is something that we really want to focus on here, because this is a marketing effort. If there's any place where marketing needs to be involved, it's here. They need to help us get in the door and create some brand recognition, absolutely. But we also need a high quality deliverable that uses the language that marketing science backs. Now, I'm not talking here about all kinds of marketing lingo, all kinds of jargon and fake words that are created and acronyms and all that sort of thing that go in marketing documents. What I'm really talking about here is the science of marketing. Because if the client is not persuaded at the end of this thing, then we really haven't done any benefit to them. And we're not going to close the deal. We've got to create some urgency in their mind. And so when we start delivering reports that talk about ports being compromised and ports being open and malware infections and things that sound technical, it's going to send me, again, right back down to the technical people with the executive management saying, well, just fix this thing. But if I come in and I say, this system right here is compromised, somebody can get to this data right now. In fact, somebody's in this data right now. There's no time to go down to the IT organization and toss around different solutions and that sort of thing. We need to get people in here right now. Obviously, the strategy that you've employed is not working. So let's find something that is working, and let's put it together. This is what creates urgency, and this is what resellers need to start to do to accelerate the sales process. So if you're here at the Kaspersky conference in Cancun this week, I'm hoping that you'll be joining me tomorrow morning and you'll be able to see this presentation, and it'll give you a fuller sense of, or maybe a vision for what you could be doing in your business that's going to accelerate growth and accelerate the business that you're doing. And it's going to lead with security, but there's going to be all kinds of things that follow on. All kinds of things, including servers and storage and software and hardware and all kinds of things, including managed services. And if you're not at the conference, then I hope some of this summary will help you maybe create a new vision for what you could be doing with your business. Things that will accelerate sales and will pull executives into audiences where you might be able to show them what's happening and get them to ask the question, is it at least worth looking? And then be prepared to respond to show them where the urgency is. Thanks again. This is Dave Stelzl, and here we are in Cancun, enjoying the end of the rainstorm here, so hopefully we'll be out enjoying good weather here shortly.